Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly. My email address is tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing. Today, we're discussing a Grade 5 Titanium limited edition of 25 pieces launched for the 2022 model year. But before I jump into the showcase of the watch, let me give you a little bit of background on the Angelus brand. It was reestablished in 2015 as a super boutique label by the manufacturer lug-to-lug of La Chaux-de-Fonds. Their technical director, Sébastien Chalmontet, was a fan and collector of vintage Angelus Chronograph watches, and he was quite enthused to be bringing the brand back. The odd thing about the revival, though, was that Angelus, historically known for calendar and chronograph watches, was revived as an horlogerie tourbillon specialist almost exclusively for most of its first decade. And it wasn't until recently that the company started making watches without tourbillon. With the Chronodate, the company gets back to its historical strengths with calendars and chronographs, and it was worth the wait. The watch is 42.5 millimeters in diameter. It is 14.5 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 51 millimeters, and has a nice modern 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. My wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference, and I'll put the watch on my wrist, and with the integration of the lugs, it wears almost more like a tonneau case. I do believe that because it is so broad at 51 millimeters across the wrist, you're going to need a wrist of my size or larger to wear this. Looking at it from over the top, the lugs are not over the edge of my wrist, but they are right out to the edge, which is sort of my go-no-go zone. This works, but if your wrist is any smaller, I don't think it will. In profile, it's not offensive to a cuff, though tight sleeves will get hung up. A jacket, however, should be just fine. So 16 centimeters circumference or up. Taking a quick look at the strap, it does look like it might be textile. That's actually an embossed pattern on rubber. It's a thick cut of rubber, very thick in fact. This strap may very well last a decade. There's a push button quick release for the strap underneath, and if you wish, you can use any number of standard 22 millimeter spring bar straps with this setup, which is nice because by putting the quick release mechanism in the strap, Angelus leaves a conventional lug spacing and spring bar, so you can still go full custom while preserving the ease of adding and removing the factory spec straps. Taking a quick look here, we have a titanium folding clasp, twin fold, Angelus branded inside and outside. It's mostly satinated, though as you can see there are some polished highlights and a little bit of media blast as well. It is a trigger release, so you have to press both triggers for it to open up. It's nice to have on a sports watch, gives you a measure of security against accidental deployment. Now the case is fascinating in that the inner canister in black is made of carbon fiber. This is to help reduce the mass of the watch, and that it does impressively. Though it's large at almost 43 millimeters, it's quite light. It's highly angular. It doesn't have a lot of curves, though it does have a couple of well-chosen polished bevels. Being grade 5 titanium, it has all the advantages of titanium, being hypoallergenic and lighter than steel, but the grade 5 stuff is also harder to scratch than steel, which is nice to have on a sports watch. We have a little rubber shoulder flanking the crown with the Angelus logo right there, and then we have meticulously labeled chronograph triggers. So if you wish to stop or start, you know exactly where to go, and if you want to reset, again, very self-explanatory. The bezel is serrated and it's layered. Underneath, there's a layer of carbon fiber. On top, there's brushed titanium. We have a dramatically boxed sapphire, which gives it nice depth and maybe a little bit of a vintage plexi aesthetic. The dial is a sort of white-gray opaline with numerals that stand proud of the dial. They are applique. We have modified syringe-style hands at center, almost like a hybrid of alpha and syringe hands. We have a pointer-style date. The watch has two subsidiary setting modes. One is the hacking seconds function. The other is the quick set function, so you can rapidly set that radial date. Now there's a track outboard. You can see it overhangs the central dial. A rehaut that features both seconds and days of the month. We have two registers, one chronograph seconds, the other chronograph minutes. And as you can see right here, the hands have all been brushed for a matte finish that's anti-glare and premium. You'll also appreciate that as the seconds hand passes 12, watch the minute counter right there, a semi-instantaneous jump. Lug-to-lug started as Jacques, and they were famed in the 90s and early 2000s for building variations on value movements, and that's exactly what we have right here. They call this caliber 500. It's based on a 7750 architecture, but with the power reserve upgraded to 60 hours and the cam system replaced with a very visible column wheel under my finger. It is also more finely finished and meticulously decorated than any standard 7750. You can see this is number 5 of 25, titanium, 3 ATM water resistance. You don't want to take it swimming, 26 pivot joules. It's got a 4 hertz beat rate, so 8 beats per second, 28,800 vibrations per hour. You'll note that while it's mostly mechanically finished, it's executed very handsomely. Elements like the channeling around the edge of the bridges and the recesses with Media Blast are evocative of brands like Grunefeld. The watch has the usual combination of a wire clutch spring and an oscillating pinion lateral clutch. So what an oscillating pinion is that it's a type of lateral clutch with very little play, which is how I'm able to repeatedly start this chronograph with almost no jump or stagger. If you start a lateral pinion, or I should say oscillating pinion lateral clutch chronograph by pressing and holding the chronograph start trigger, you'll generally get no jump. And this is germane to all 7750 architectures, but what's different is that there's less play in the oscillating pinion, which is why recently brands like Richard Mille, de Bethune, FP Journe have gotten back into the oscillating pinion business, giving you an aesthetically attractive lateral clutch, but also with a more seamless engagement. Now, the watch does have plenty of lume, although it's not really an aquatic sports watch with 30-meter water resistance. There's really no shortage of lume, a very, very bright dial in the dark. Well equipped and rare. There's only a handful of these made every year. As last I checked, Angelus is making about 100 pieces per year, most of which are tourbillon. So this is an interesting way to get into a very boutique brand that's backed by citizen watch money. That is the ultimate paymaster for Lug-to-lug, Arnold & Son, and Angelus, so you know they'll always be around. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.